All right, so the reason I had you guys look at that video is because when we were done evaluating everything, we realized, and so did our attorney who sharpshoots him later, this guy based 75 to 80% of his testimony on body language. Ta-da! So the prosecutor asked him, now if I understand it correctly, you're evaluating the body language of ADW Holland and compare it to the report and do not find those to be consistent? He goes, that is correct. And then he goes on, as you guys saw, he goes on a tangent on how this body language means that and this and that. I mean, have you guys ever met a body language expert? Because I really haven't. And I've been doing interviews and interrogations for, I don't know, over 20 years, and I'm not a body language, but this dude is apparently a body language, and based on that, he was able to tell that you were lax, completely lax.
No, laxative.
Yeah, laxative. You were laxative.
Which isn't a proper word to use.
I was fatter then. Is it possible that I was just droopy?
Or is it possible that you were doing what they asked you? You calm, cool, and collective. Why? We've been doing this for many years.
Well,
I've had inmates assault me, and I'm calm. The hell do I care?
Do we train to lose composure, or do we train to maintain composure, especially supervisors? You know, your staff are going to feed off you, and we always train that to maintain that composure, so your staff don't lose composure.
And I have extra training that a lot of corrections don't have. In the last Iraqi war, I was a trigger puller. I was trained for combat. I was in active combat with people shooting back at me, and I learned the conditions of combat, and I learned how to keep cool under pressure. And then when I transitioned from the Army into corrections, they taught a very similar approach to intense and or violent situations. Approach determines response. Cool, calm, and collected. I went from learning how to be cool, calm, and collected to being reinforced and taught how to be cool, calm, and collected in corrections. And then let's just add to that. When you work in a prison, is it flowers and candy? Anybody? No.
It might end up
Summer
that way.
camp?
It's coming. It might be coming.
But you're always in higher classifications of stress and awareness, like the color codes of awareness. You're in red, or you're in orange, or you're in yellow. You're never in green. So the more saturated you become and the more aware you become of your surroundings, the easier it is to be cool, calm, and collective. What I was feeling on the inside in my mind and in my awareness is not going to translate to my physical body.
Right.
Because I am not going to escalate a situation. This guy talking about body language, and I mean this
75 to 80% of his testimony.
He is generalizing statements and using terms to make it sound like he knows what he's talking about, when in reality, he has no idea what he's talking about with my body language, or Haasz's body language, or most corrections officers' body language, because he doesn't have the time in corrections to even remotely understand.
He doesn't even realize that we're doing single-hand escorts to this day, the day he testified. So how far off is he?
He just insulted himself and all of corrections with this entire testimony.
Well, it gets better.
I was embarrassed by his testimony. I truly was.
You brought up double locking.
Correct.
Apparently, just so you guys don't know, this is nothing new. You know, double locking is usually used when you're doing a long range escort. You know, you're going in a state vehicle, or
Max custody.
you're going to be away from him because you're putting him in a holding cell. You want to double lock it, you know, that way you can pick. Anyway, other than that, you all know when double locks, they're cuffs, okay? And when you read the policy says that you double lock cuffs, but it's done in a way where it's not written in stone. So let's see what this dude has to say about that, because they focused on that during the trial for the whole 4 years that Hasz and Holland, well, 3.5, whatever, right? That they had not double locked. Let's see what he has to say about double locking cuffs.
And as I was watching that, I see the Assistant Deputy Warden Holland start walking towards the area where the inmate was placed against the wall. By reviewing the video, the demeanor of the Assistant Deputy Warden didn't match what the report was saying of how he was being aggressive and trying to pull away, trying to evade from being in restraints, because the demeanor of the Assistant Deputy Warden was in a calm nature. Because if there was any exigency where any of that could have existed, you would expect some type of duty to intervene.
Now, so I understand correctly, you're evaluating the body language of ADW Holland and compared to the report, and do not find those to be consistent.
That is correct.
And what?
So when I'm looking at the whole totality of everything, I'm trying to figure out how and what demeanors does each person that's involved is presenting. And at that time, the assistant deputy warden's demeanor showed that there was no exigency to that incident prior to the takedown.
Now you also mentioned the other inmates. What, if anything, what kind of relevance do they have and their body language have with regard to your opinion?
Based off my experience of working in a correctional setting, anytime when there's an inmate involved with a staff member and they see that it's not going in the direction where there's going to possibly be some kind of hostility or some type of aggression, their demeanor start changing. You can start seeing them move in a way where, hey, that is like my person. This is a person just like me. And during that time, none of them were doing it. You had a guy on the right-hand side who continued to clean, and none of their demeanors were changing.
I'm going to pause you real quick. The guy on the side, do you mean the porter?
The porter, that is correct.
So are you basing a lot of what you're telling us off the porter and his body language and movement?
I'm basing it off every movement that's in there, because my goal, my job is to look at the use of force as a totality of things. Because I'm trying to look at it from the perspective as the officer. And if the demeanors are not showing, the exigencies of relevance are not being presented, those are the things that I look for when I'm reviewing use of force.
So I'm pausing here at 10 minutes and 55 seconds. What do you see as far as body language and demeanor between ADW Holland and Lieutenant Hasz?
I see a demeanor of calmness, and I see a demeanor of no state of alert to be in a heightened alert status or a demeanor of showing that there's concern.
Now, are you familiar with policy 804?
Yes, I am.
And what does policy 804 state with regard to handcuffing an individual within the complex? That
the inmate that has to be cuffed in the complex based off of behavioral or they are overall like acting in an aggressive manner, or in transport of high-risk unit areas, they're cuffed and restrained and moved for movement in high-risk areas of the department.
And if restraints or handcuffs are going to be used, is there any sort of requirement about how tight they should be?
Yes, per policy they have to be through skin to metal.
And then what about double locking?
Double locking is also in policy where you must double lock your handcuffs prior to moving the subject or the inmate or subject to the area that you're moving, especially when you have restraints applied.
Is there any exception to double locking or doing metal to skin within the policy?
No, there's no exceptions.
And why not?
So now that you guys watched that, how do you feel about this? He says, and you guys saw it, double locking is also in policy where you must double lock your handcuffs prior to moving the subject or the inmate or subject to the area that you're moving, especially when you have restraints applied. The prosecutor, his guy says, is there any exception important to the shall? Because we know it says shall, and we have discussed that in there. Is there any exception to double locking or doing metal to skin within the policy? No, there is no exceptions. So let me ask you something, because right now we're in the midst of, as we're doing this video, staff assaults. We've had over 6 in a week. Right now in Lewis Complex, they're pulling out inmates like it's going out of style because none of them are double locking. Are we going to tell our staff? Should we tell our staff, hey, they're breaking the law? Don't you know? I mean, this can go bad. Or should we tell them that we have to turn against them and turn him into this Delgado guy and tell them, hey, you need to go in there and start laying down the law. Everybody's breaking it and you're not doing shit as we speak. Oh, and that's in front of your supervisors, ADW, DWs, your warden, the rods that are going down there and seeing it. They're not saying anything. I wonder how Mr. Delgado feels about that double locking now.
Well, you have to think about certain things. Is, in the first trial, Philip Weston testified to the fact that we don't double lock.
Exactly, but this witness didn't know. They didn't even hear it.
Myself, Sean Holland testified. We double lock in mass custody, detention units, transportation, or moving up the complex, but on a daily basis, on a yard basis, when you got an arrested inmate, you cuff them up, you get them back. But like I said, I was going to actually apply the double locks in the horseshoe units. I got to a safe position without threats in the pod.
Inmate's having a heart attack. I'm just spitballing here. Inmate's having a heart attack. All right, just a heart attack. He's confirmed. This guy is convulsing. All right, are you guys going to turn around and double cuff him in the back? I'm just asking.
Apparently, that's the priority.
It says no exceptions.
No exceptions. Black and white.
Inmate's been shanked, bleeding out. Yeah. Doctors, they're telling you we cannot do CPR. No exceptions to this.
According to Delgado, it doesn't matter what's happening to the
inmate. I just wanted to make sure.
And let me clarify something too. Pruitt also testified to the same lie. Pruitt was very firm on that. That it was black and white, double locking those restraints. I know for a fact that Pruitt doesn't double lock those restraints in those yards.
And he's fine.
Also,
and he's fine. And he lied again.
He did agree, though.
There's exigent circumstances.
That eventually he did agree that there are exigent circumstances,
right,
such as our situation, that double locking isn't required.
Correct.
Okay, let's watch one more clip here.
And we're going to pause it at 10 minutes, 58 seconds. We're not quite to the wall. What have you observed so far?
I observed that something that looks like the lieutenant and the inmate are talking to each other, appears to be talking, and it appears at that point that the lieutenant at that time takes an aggressive movement and starts moving in the direction towards the wall.
So I backed it up to 10 minutes and 56 seconds. Watching the video again, can you tell if the inmate is resisting or attempting to break the escort? And I'm going to play it again for just a few seconds. Now I've stopped it again at 10:57. Based on that short clip, what did you see?
I saw an inmate that looked at the lieutenant as, what is going on? That type of demeanor, a look of surprise. As he's being escorted, he looked to them in an aggressive, like, what? Like, what is going on? Because the movement that I see on this video is that the lieutenant takes the action of aggressively moving the inmate towards the wall.
Now, as you were just describing, I'm not sure if the court saw it, and for the record, when you say was looking at this, you kind of turned your head, looking as if you were the inmate looking towards the officer?
Correct.
And then, so based on just this, the last 3 seconds, do you believe the inmate is resisting or attempting to break the escort?
He's not attempting to break the escort at this time. It looks like he's questioning why he's being pulled in a certain manner.
Okay, so you guys saw what happened there, right? There's an escort going on. The inmate kind of tries to get away from Lieutenant Hasz. Inmate even looks up at him. We all know that behavior. I don't have to preach to the choir. But this is what this guy just said. I saw an inmate that looked at the lieutenant as, what is going on? His own words. The type of demeanor, a look of surprise as he's being escorted. He looked at him in an aggressive, like, what? Like, what is going on? This is your administrator talking on a stand. Because the movement that I see on this video is that the lieutenant takes the action of aggressively moving the inmate towards the wall. They already cleared you, man. The other use of force, both sides says that was not the case. This guy shows up at the last minute under oath and starts spewing out all this bullshit, and I'm telling you,
bullshit, keyword.
For you guys, this is what they're gonna come after you when they want you. Pay attention, I'm not making this shit up. You're watching it on video and I'm reading it. And this should make your alarms go up, and even get involved and tell this director, this guy cannot be teaching and training us.
I got a question.
We've got to stand together on that, ladies and gentlemen.
So Delgado was able to focus in, allegedly, on the inmate's facial expressions.
He's an expert in body language.
Expert in body language, on the inmate's facial expressions,
right,
but somehow missed the inmate aggressive behavior and all that?
Well, unfortunately, he didn't read the inmate's testimony to CIU, where he admits to CIU, where he said, "Get the fuck off of me," or "What was Hasz saying in your ear?" Well, Hasz was telling me to calm down, relax. These are all things that he said to CIU, but yet he's putting words in his mouth that are not true if he'd done his homework and read the entire case.
Here's another clip.
16 here, and we stopped it at 11:20. What have you seen here?
At that time, I saw ADW look like he was about to tap on the door, and his reaction of like a quick reaction as if he was stunned that the inmate was taken to the ground. That's based off his demeanor, and the inmate was taken to the ground, and it looked like he actually slipped out of the lieutenant's hands, causing him to land onto his side.
And when you say he, you mean inmate Peralta.
That is correct.
And so, if I understand.
Okay, so we're back. You guys all seen it a million times. You guys watched it carefully. Here's what the expert witness has to say. At that time, I saw ADW look like he was about to tap on the door, and his reaction was of like a quick reaction as if he was stunned that the inmate was taken to the ground. He's reading for you your inner nature, my friend. This guy has channeled your chakras. He knows what's going in your soul. And that's based off his demeanor, yours. And the inmate was taken to the ground. And it looked like he actually slipped out of the lieutenant's hand, causing him to land onto his side. No one ever brought it up. Even I didn't see it. Apparently this guy saw him slip out. You guys need to be careful. That's why we're bringing it up. I'm not going to become a jokester. But this is dangerous grounds. And he did it on a stand.
Just to remind everybody, multiple people, myself, experts for the prosecution, experts for our side, all said that Hasz did not slam the inmate, that he controlled his descent. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
And it was a solid takedown. But then, as Carlos said, Mr. Delgado gets up there and spins a web.
And let me remind you too, they actually asked Delgado if he reviewed Pruitt's testimony or Delgado's testimony, and he said no, he did not. So that's if you look at the conflict there, and rightfully you shouldn't have. They should be on the same page, but to have your criminal investigators and a trainer to be that far apart tells me there's a big problem with their policies and what they're doing in the department.
You want a problem? Watch this clip here. This is a fucking problem.
Okay, and now were you able to join via Teams and listen to the testimony of Lieutenant Hasz yesterday?
Yes.
And did you hear him talk about how he was trained to do that exact takedown?
Yes, I did hear that.
And based on your understanding of both use of force and defensive tactics, and then your subsequent revision of those policies, was that takedown a technique or tactic that had been trained on?
That is not a tactic or technique that was trained on whatsoever. I look back into the future or the past training records when it comes to curriculum, and there's not one curriculum that said there was a type of takedown to take down an inmate that has been restrained from behind.
To your knowledge, has Department of Corrections or AZCPOA taught other corrections officers takedown methods for people that are restrained by handcuffs?
No, there is no techniques taught on doing takedowns or any kind of maneuver that an inmate will be restrained.
Okay, so you guys saw what he just said. He says when asked about the technique that you use, that is not a tactic or technique that was trained on whatsoever. I look back into the future or the past training records. So on those thousands of use of forces with the same takedowns, he didn't see it. When it comes to curriculum, and there's not one curriculum that said that there was a type of takedown to take down an inmate that has been restrained from behind. This is coming from a guy, he just told you he's looked back in the future and past training records, and there's none of it, including CODA.
He looked back in the future. He didn't say that.
That's what he said. Back into the future or the past training. He has 6 words. This is the same guy who spelled lieutenant on his resume with an E instead of an A.
That's let me rephrase that.
And we're
for you
making
guys.
fun of that. We have to.
He had, I want to say, 8 years as a lieutenant. And when you testify for court, you have to, it's like a resume you put down there, what you did, how long you did it for. He cannot spell lieutenant correctly. He misspelled it.
Yeah.
He's the guy writing your curriculum, your policies, and he can't even give the court proper documentation.
Go ahead,
Not only that, but the attorneys for the state couldn't pick that up. The prosecutor couldn't pick up the misspellings, and they gave it to the judge.
Also, as far as that training goes, I personally have, and I know Hasz personally has, attended self-defense training where we trained taking an inmate down in restraints.
We are in Coda. I went in. When did you go through? I went in '95. They were showing that.
I went in 2005.
Yes, it's
Apparently we dreamt it.
And
Yeah.
it's mostly the practical applications and the use of force
And
where
the
they actually,
scenarios.
the scenarios where they actually have people in padded equipment so they don't get injured. So we have inmates resisting on the wall, how to spread their legs on the wall, and how to conduct a takedown and restraints while they're in pads. Yeah, he says that's never happened, that we ever trained in pads. We never trained in takedowns because of the risk of staff being injured in these situations. But yet we did have a lot of staff get injured in these training simulations. I don't need to name names, but y'all know quite a few who were injured in these simulations.
And those injuries actually led to increased protective padding.
Yeah.
So, but
How do you feel about this clip here?
So in the example where an inmate is handcuffed and being held up against the wall, any sort of insults, derogatory terms being called to the officer, do you believe any sort of insults would justify a use of force?
No, they would not.
Then how do you square that with the statement that was read to you by defense counsel that words were sufficient?
Because what the counsel said was he was talking about state law. That's what the law says. But out of good faith of someone being in a compromised manner, it's not reasonable at that time to do a takedown during that time of incident, during that time that he was with that inmate.
So let's maybe change the fact pattern. If you're a corrections officer and I'm just out open in the yard, but I take a more aggressive stance and start hurling insults like, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna beat your ass, or I'm gonna do X, Y, Z, do those words justify use of force against me?
If you are just saying it from a distance and I'm safe to do so, absolutely not. I will be at a higher state of mind, but I will attempt to de-escalate the situation by making sure I have distance and cover an area to prevent and try to utilize a lesser means of type of force if that presented to me.
So here's what he had to say in that video. You guys heard it with your own ears, but I want to reinforce one part. If you're approaching an inmate and you're taking into consideration how you're going to use force, the inmate could be saying, "I'm going to kill you." From being cut from behind doesn't mean that is insinuating that he's actually has the means to kill you. So if he's cuffed, he's saying, "I'm going to kill you," you can stand down a little bit, okay? So when someone is verbalizing, telling you, all they're doing is at that point is just trying to egg you on to see what they can get a rise out of you. You know how many staff have been killed with this kind of this guy's saying egg it on? Apparently all the inmates, according to this dillweed, are just, what's the word? They're just egging you on. None of them mean to do you harm. These are murderers, killers, rapists who are saying, "I'm going to kill you," so you don't react to that according to him.
so every threat has just been egging on.
It's egging on.
And you're supposed to ignore it, but
Yeah.
yet there's tickets for it, violations, disrespecting staff
Yeah.
to address it.
On how to deal with that situation.
He says our job as professionals is to ensure that we are level-headed, we are consistent, and are always showing professionalism by not engaging in that type of behavior in return. So you can't return that behavior, okay? And we're not just talking about verbal. He's saying, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you." He's cuffed or not cuffed, it doesn't matter. As long as you have space according to this guy, you have to use that approach. This, I'm telling you, this is gonna come back and haunt you guys. If this guy stays here, he's gonna hunt you down, especially after these guys winning. They're gonna slam that down even more. They're already suppressing, they're gonna do it more.
That's okay. Later on, he talks about words and use of force.
Yeah.
He's the one that changed your self-defense curriculum to a verbal threat is not a reason to use force.
Oh, but
Yeah.
just wait. We're going to talk about that.
Here it is again, this from transcript. They're asking him when it came down to you, what kind of body language movements do you see? This is from the prosecutor. This guy's 75 to 80% was on body language.